Ashley, we're just about a minute out. I'd like to go ahead and try and see if I can hear you again, and then I will not mute or unmute on my end.
All right, can you hear me now?
Every time all right, let's try it again.
Can you hear me now?
Ashley.
Let me know if you can hear me now.
I'm going to try it again. Can't hear you here. I know everyone else can hear, but all right, Ashley, one more time.
All right, can you hear me now?
No. All right, try it again.
All right, can you hear me?
No. And again.
What about now? Can you hear me?
Nope. I'm going to mute you and then ask you to unmute.
All right, what about now? Did that work?
All right, try it again.
Can you hear me now?
Can you try muting and unmuting on your end?
Sure.
Counselor Hink, we need to run through the same thing with you again. Even though it's worked twice, it's not going to work the third time.
Okay.
Ashley?
Can you hear me?
All right, Ashley, try it again.
Can you hear me now?
I give up. All right, try it again.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I went back and forth on both of them and muted and unmuted. Either one of you?
Can you hear either of us?
Testing, testing.
That one's right.
Speakers.
Yeah, that's no. Counselor Hink?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes, testing.
Who'd we get? Need one of you to try to speak again,
Oh,
please.
Oh, testing.
go ahead.
All right, don't change a thing. Don't leave, don't mute. Let me get the recording going. Is that? One person did, if you could check for anyone back there, that's great.
All right, I have 7:03. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Irvin? Counselor Hink?
Here.
Counselor Lamberman?
Here.
Counselor Meriday?
Here.
Counselor Settlemyer?
Here.
Counselor Wilson?
Here.
Mayor Soulsby?
Here. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Items to be added to the agenda. We have none officially, but we do have one official. It is Mindy Roberts' birthday on Cinco de Mayo. So we will always remember that. We want to wish you happy birthday, Mindy. And we have cake for everyone. And
Birthday to birthday, oh, happy birthday to you.
And she hates us all right now. All right. Appearance of interested citizens. This is a time for citizen comments. The council will first take comments addressing items not listed on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. The council will then take comments addressing action items on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. Individual speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer, provide their name, identity, whether they are a city resident, and if so, their ward. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less with council approval. Comments regarding any other matter scheduled for a public hearing may be provided only during that hearing. The council will make no decisions based on public comment. However, staff and council may choose to ask questions or comment following the conclusion of citizen comment. Nancy McCollum.
Talk about today is the city pool, the William Doherty pool, I mean, and how valuable it is to us senior members. Well, I can speak only for myself, but I have friends who agree with me about this, that as senior members of the pool, we just couldn't do without it. And I also want to start by saying it's part of what drew my husband and I to Cottage Grove in the first place, because we came from out of state and we moved here in 2002. So we've been here over 20 years now, and it's been wonderful to be here. And so knowing that you had a pool here was one of the reasons. that my husband was retiring, and he's a swimmer. He was a swimmer. He's not with us anymore, but he wanted to be able to swim. And so he was very, very glad. And we were also overjoyed when the pool was updated and and remodeled and so on. And it is so beautiful now. It's so wonderful. And I broke my back about 4 years ago, and my physical therapist told me that, I was doing the exercises right and everything was going fine. But I wasn't really getting back where I wanted to be. And he said, go to the pool. You got to go to the pool. So when I discovered the pool had a warm pool, I was able to go there and I was able to get my back strength back again. And so I'm back to gardening. I'm not allowed to bicycle anymore because if I fall off, it could be bad. but I'm back to most of the activities I was able to do again. And I couldn't have done it without the pool. So anyway, and I was really happy to be able to invest in the pool in the way that the citizens of Cottage Grove have. And anyway, I'm just very, very grateful. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Public hearings, we have none. Consent agenda, none. Yes. Oh. Oh, I missed it. All right. Mr. Kelch.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, good. I had the phone ready just in case. All right, so I'd like to speak to the Sentinel had an article on the status of the goal setting the council is engaged in. That's item 8B, I noticed on the agenda. I noticed, and others did as well, that unlike many earlier years, the seniors were omitted in the recreation goals. In the 2024 community services page, the statement is, in an overview, the center works to support the needs of the community for recreational, cultural, and social opportunities for all ages and abilities. So, and the operational objectives include working with community organizations to enhance recreational and educational opportunities for youth, seniors, and people of all ages in Cottage Grove and beyond. So the focus is all members of the community, all ages. And while the councils would be commended in their goal setting to focus on the youth, because it's a huge part of what a recreation district should be doing, we'd hope that they would also consider language that includes seniors as part of that, as since I'm now part of that senior group, and others as well. But seniors play an important role in the community. They need the physical exercise, something like the swimming pool. They need community. There's a crisis in America of loneliness, and obviously more active.
Mr. Kausch, we have lost sound.
Okay, hold on. Can you hear me on the phone? Hello? Hello, hello? Trying the phone. Hello? Can you hear me at all? No? Okay, we're done.
Bruce, I'm going to try another setting, speaker setting. Reluctantly afraid to lose everyone else. All right, let's try that and see if that works. Back on your computer.
Mr. Kausch, go ahead and try to speak.
Can you hear me now?
I'm going to try switching back and forth here. Sometimes that seems to
Okay.
work. Let's try it again.
I'm so sorry. I'm a test case for you all the time.
Yeah.
I do have my, well, you can't hear me, I guess. I have, my phone is on here. You can, if you let me in by phone. Does that work? Hello?
Yeah, I think you're live again.
Is this?
Try to speak.
On my
There you
phone
go.
or on this,
We can hear you.
Through your
Okay.
computer.
through my computer. All right, where did I leave off? Where did you stop hearing me? I'm sorry.
Supporting seniors and youth.
There we go. Thanks very much. I think that as you look at the goal setting, it'd be very much appreciated if there was consideration and inclusion of language about seniors as well in the goal setting as you go through it and you review it and discuss it. So that's my pitch, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Public hearings, we have none. Consent agenda, none. Resolutions and ordinances, none. Business from the City Council. Item A, Budget Committee appointments. Who's the chair? Counselor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors, and citizens. We met with a really good group of Budget Committee applicants. We had 7 people that in the community that submitted applications to volunteer on the Budget Committee. One of the applicants was not able to participate in the interview process. So of the 6 that we did interview, we had 4 positions that we were trying to fill. And fortunately, we had 5 of the 6 that we identified as people that we felt would adequately do the job. That of course put us in a position of eliminating somebody. We did have 2 3-year positions that we were filling and 2 1-year positions that we were filling. I believe I have my information correct in that we have identified, and I'm be naming them now, Alex Dreyer for a 1-year position, Johanna Z as a 1-year position, Greg Ingold as a 3-year position, and Danny Soulsby as a 3-year position.
So I will need to recuse myself from this vote because Danny Soulsby is my husband. So, Council President.
So we can either take discussion on this item or can change a motion and then have discussion. So the subcommittee has made a recommendation, but it's up to the council to formally either adopt or something else.
Can you say again the individuals that you that the subcommittee is nominating?
Yes. Alex Dreyer, for a 1-year position.
It's
Dreer, sorry, apologies to Alex. Greg Ingold for a 3-year position. Danny Soulsby for a 3-year position, and Johanna Z for a 1-year position.
Councilor Lamron.
Council President, Council, thank you. So I really only have a question about one of the applicants, and that would be Alex Dreyer. As a council member who was recalled, why do you feel that she would be a good candidate for the budget committee?
Me specifically?
Well, just the subcommittee in general, any of you.
Well, I can answer why I think so. Alex possesses some insight into our finances that few in our community actually do at this moment. And I think that those key insights are going to be pretty important to have at the table for this budget cycle. Namely, I think she's managed the whole grant process for the Main Street project through that gets passed through EDA, and understands what areas of our budget are high risk and really need to be focused on to get us into an area where we can be in, let's see, a very good financial standing. So I think that among all the candidates, that was a standout. Yeah, I felt was, I think, is important to have her at the table. Understand your concerns also.
Well, part of the concern is on behalf of the general public. They recalled her. Why should they feel that it would be in their best interest to have her overseeing and voting on matters of the city budget? That's my main concern. I mean, we're all here to represent these guys and the rest of the community, and I think they spoke very loudly. So that's my 2 cents.
Councilor Merida.
I can understand that concern, but I would not, I would have not supported this candidate had she been recalled for any malfeasance or anything illegal or any wrongdoing. In fact, one of the charges was a unanimous vote on the recall.
Councilor Sotomayor.
The idea that, like, I ran against somebody for this election and they chose me. And I know that that person at times has been on the budget committee and has some great insight that a lot of people, I mean, it wasn't a unanimous vote that I am here and that person's insights won't help us moving forward. And any one of us on the council, we don't represent everybody if that means that we can say what all of Cottage Grove favors. So I don't think that the recall was unanimous. I would guess that Alex does represent a perspective, and there's 15 other people on this committee to try and bring in other perspectives.
Councilor Hike.
I share a lot of the same concerns. However, you know, looking through all the applicants and thinking about top 4, I have to put Alex as part of that top 4, just based off the experience that she has. I do have the same concerns about that public perception that this is someone that was recalled. And I think we could expect some comment and backlash from that. But looking at looking at the applicants on my screen in front of me, it's clear that she, based off of that, belongs in that top 4.
Counselor Wilson?
Yeah, basically the experience was not something that we could ignore. And I do understand the concern. I also share a lot of the concerns. But do understand that, yes, she was recalled, but she is a member of our public. And she does represent voices within the public, and we have to represent, as a council, we have to represent the entire city, not just our own personal views. But mainly the reason that was her experience, just the background that she has and the knowledge that she has is a little more than could be just set aside. And with it's a 14-person budget committee. And so she brings a personal agenda to the meeting. There's going to be 13 other voices there.
Counselor Merryday?
And again, I want to emphasize the reason that we agreed as a committee that she would be a qualified applicant was her immense knowledge of the grant process and budget. She works for Lane County and handles millions of dollars of funds and is a self-professed policy geek when it comes to this. And her knowledge, I think, will be bringing valuable insights to our very, very difficult decisions that we'll have to make on the budget committee as we look at our declining revenues with our rising costs. So we all felt that she was extremely qualified.
There's no further discussion. Would you like to make a motion? Counselor Lammerman?
So, Council President, Council, so I know in the memorandum, there's a suggested motion body. Instead of lumping it all together, can we do an individual motion by person for the 4 individuals?
I don't see why not. Yeah.
Okay.
Technically we could, yeah. Why don't well, let's do his first. Yep. I'm not gonna make the motion, so
Okay.
if somebody wants to make the motion.
You can't make.
I can.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll call the
So is
vote.
he in for 3 or 1?
Danny's in for 3. So move that we appoint Danny Soulsby for a 3-year position on the budget committee.
The second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Stand by, we'll go get the mayor. Sit.
In on what we did.
Bringing you up to speed, Mayor, we're individually voting on the members.
Oh,
Per motion, we've already voted on the one that you're.
thank you. Thank you. All right.
So we have had a motion and second and voted on Danny, so. And it was unanimous.
All right,
So
so,
the other
We
ones
no
you're,
longer have a
oh, I know, okay.
so you're allowed
So
to, just Annie.
just Annie. All right. So go ahead.
To make a motion and move that Johanna Z be appointed to 1 year term, remaining term of the Budget Committee. So that would be expiring December 31st, 2016. Or 2026.
That-
time machine.
26.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Counselor Irvin.
Council appoint to 3 year term to the Budget Committee expiring December 31st, 2027.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Counselor Irvin.
To move that the council appoint Alex Dreher to a 1 year term expiring, and clarity on this meant because these other terms say December 31st, 2025. Is that what they actually? Okay. The term expiring this year, December 31st, 2025. That's, yeah.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
No.
Nay. All right. City
Question.
Council.
Question.
Yes.
So on Johanna Z's nomination, wouldn't she have the same 12/31/2025 date, not 26?
Friendly.
Yeah.
Motion.
Might need to be safe. Just do it. The date was wrong on Johanna Z's.
Yeah.
Okay,
Guess we can supersede.
okay, let's just do
I'd
that.
like to move that the council appoints Johanna Z to the Budget Committee for a term expiring December 2025 rather than 2026.
I second.
We have a motion with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Counselor. All right. Item B, City Council Goal Discussion. Ashley?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'll just do one more sound check to make sure everyone can hear me.
Good.
Good? All right, great. Well, thank you so much for having me. The purpose of our time together tonight is to finalize the council's goals so they can be ready for the council to adopt at your next meeting, which I believe is scheduled on the May 12th meeting. We began this refinement process at the April 14th council meeting and covered goals, council goals 1, 2, and 3. And tonight we're going to pick up where we left off with goals 4 and 5. And to finalize the goals for this process, we will review the goals for clarity and discuss any refinements as needed. And just a reminder of the rules for success that we established together at the March City Council retreat. Any refinements to the existing objectives or any proposals for new objectives that come up will move forward with council consensus or majority. And then also as part of this process, we will review the council's proposed vision statement and the council's team values. We developed the council statement and the values as a result of the discussions that we had at the March retreat. And so the vision captures the overall direction of the council's goals. So it's essentially a summary statement of your goals. And then the team values outline the guiding principles that inform how the council will work together in advancing these goals together. And so with that introduction of our purpose here tonight, let's go ahead and pick up where we left off with the council goals with number 4, which is community growth. And so bear with me just a moment and I'm going to share my screen. All right, can everyone see that? Yes. All right. So we're going to jump ahead to goal number 4, which is community growth. The proposed language for the goal statement for this goal is for community growth states to cultivate a vibrant and resilient economy by attracting businesses, expanding development opportunities, revitalizing key areas, increasing tourism, and promoting accessible housing solutions. The outcomes for this goal are living wage jobs, a vibrant economy with economic prosperity for all, increased tourism, celebrating our local history, promoting arts and culture, and increasing housing availability and accessibility. And at the March retreat, Council developed 8 supporting objectives for this goal area. And then staff is proposing 1 additional objective for a total of 9. And so that last one is in red because it hasn't had a chance for the council to provide input on whether it should be included in the goals. So that would be one of the ones that we would need consensus or majority for that one to be added. But just to check in with the council at this point, if there are any questions about any of these supporting objectives or any proposals for refinement to any of the objectives listed here under the community growth goal.
Councilor Merida.
Under 4.3, complete economic opportunities analysis, I'm wondering what we need to do to complete it. It's been delivered to us and summarized to us. What do we need to do? Implement it? Is that what this goal is indicating? Or?
Director Stewart.
Mayor, Councilor Merida, it's my understanding that item will come before the city council, I believe, in the next meeting or 2 for review and acceptance and adoption of it. So it's on its course to being completed.
Thank you.
So the documents that we already received from Eco West, Northwest, are preliminary or?
Mayor, Councilor Merida, I believe there was a joint work session with Eco Northwest. Those were essentially the draft. The draft has been tuned up based on the comments that were received that evening between the 2 bodies. My understanding is, I believe it went to the Planning Commission, and I don't know the outcome of the Planning Commission, but I believe that it's scheduled to come before the City Council. So I would assume that the City Planning Commission has made a recommendation to the council.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. The next step is a public hearing, and that will be before the city council at it's scheduled for your May 12th meeting.
Thank you for those explanations.
Anyone else? No. So we need, Councilor Merida.
Under 4.4, attract businesses to Cottage Grove to reduce big building vacancies and attract new development. Is that where I'm not sure that I found it any other ways. One thing we've discussed is a vacancy registration. Would that fall under that area?
I think the intention behind this objective, Councilor Merida, was to address the building vacancies and trying to get those filled. And so I think there's a lot of different methods that could be taken to achieve this outcome. So this desired outcome of having a vibrant economy where there's reduced building vacancies. And so I think staff could provide a little bit more input, but the way that it's written provides opportunity for staff to try, different methods to reduce those building vacancies. But I don't know if staff want to weigh in and add any additional context.
Counselor Urban?
Well, good evening again, Your Honor, members of the council. It's my understanding that this goal was established, call it of a 10,000-foot view. Answer your question directly, yes. What you're talking about would definitely be included under this goal.
Counselor Urban?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to call attention to updating the housing needs analysis between when we had the goal setting session today. I became aware that the housing needs analysis now is performed with a whole new set of criteria that could potentially change the outcome for us. So I was supportive under the old method, but I'm unsure what effect that might actually have, and whether it would align with the rest of our goals at this point. So tentative on that point.
Counselor Merriday?
So Counselor Irvin, did you researched and found when was the last housing needs analysis completed? 2018. Okay.
And Counselor, we do have in the notes under this particular item that it would be updated after Project Sparrow and Ibsen were completed. I don't know if that helps.
Maybe just noting, assess the anticipated outcome and see whether it's more advantageous for us to delay that or
I'll also include that as part of the leadership team retreat the week after the council retreat, the following Friday, staff worked to refine some language and provide a little bit additional clarity to the objectives. And one of those things that that staff worked on was looking at timelines for this work. And because of the further out of the horizon with this particular objective, it was assigned a year 3.
Thank you. Counselor Settlemyer?
I didn't get it. Well, I didn't think I should try and get to the details of things, but one thing that came up in our discussion is we ended the last time we talked about our goals is, are there ways to put specifics in that we can go along and say, okay, we got that done? And I value the general idea of things, but when we go and get to the actual objectives, I'd be happy to talk about when there's time to talk about, I took a shot. I just kind of showed what I mean about doing specifics. Is there a value as we look at this community growth that some of the questions people have, like we rewrite some of these or we put A and B underneath? So if they are valued things that we're anticipating, we can just check them off when we come to them? Or is that not what we want to look at?
Counselor Settlemyer, that's a really great point. And the view that you're seeing right now on the slide deck is a higher level view of the goals with the actual goal and then the supporting objectives under them. Another tool that we've developed for council and for staff is a spreadsheet of the goals. It's an action plan, and this Excel spreadsheet outlines all of the goals, the outcomes that are associated with them, the objectives, and then it's in a table format. Also has an opportunity to list items, descriptive items like the status of that objective, the timeline that's associated with it. So what year would it be worked on? So is a year 1 objective, year 2, year 3. It also outlines who the lead department would be to carry out that work. We can include prioritization information in that in the action plan as well. And then also any sort of contextual notes from the March council retreat, from the last time we met in April, or from tonight, that provide additional context to the objectives. I'm capturing all of that in those notes as well, in that notes section. So for Councilor Merriday, with the vacancy registration under 4.4, that's captured in the notes. And so it provides additional context to staff for them to implement these objectives. Also in that action plan, there are columns available for quarterly updates. And so part of your implementation plan of these goals to make them have transparency and accountability and something that you use throughout the year and beyond. We're setting up a quarterly update structure that's going to mirror your quarterly financial updates. And so as you receive budget updates on a quarterly basis, city manager and staff will be able to provide you with updates specifically on each objective. And so any sort of context or things that you're specifically interested in and capturing, that's all great information. We capture those in the notes, and then staff uses that for not only for their implementation, but also their reporting when these come back to you on a quarterly basis.
Thank you. Councilor Lammerman.
Madam Mayor, Council. So on item 4.6, it's attracted destination hotel. What exactly is meant by destination in the terms of this? Because I get the premise of a destination hotel. I think like the Great Wolf Lodge, Disney World, things like that. Or does it just mean like, okay, well, we have things here. We have a hotel, come stay at our hotel. Like, what exactly is meant in this by a destination hotel?
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. It's my understanding that this predates me and my time with the city as well, but I fully agree with it. We would love to have a hotel that is somewhere near where the Armory is located. This would allow us to use the Armory as essentially a convention center and have maybe destinations a misnomer. Maybe we want to say convention hotel, but the idea being that we could make much better use of the Armory as a facility. We could market it much better if we had a hotel that was affiliated with it. And we think it would be, a huge boon to downtown if we were able to bring conventions in, if they were small conventions at the Armory and a hotel for people to spend the night and a downtown area for them to shop in and spend money. So that's really what we're aiming at is hopefully being able to tie those three things together: a hotel, the Armory, and our downtown.
So it would be better stated to more have an attractive venue hotel or just a hotel? Because to me, destination hotel would lead me to believe that the hotel in itself was the destination.
If there's a proposal to adjust the language now, I mean, that's an opportunity to do so, Councilor. And if the rest of council would like to provide additional clarity, if destination hotel doesn't quite suit the description or the intention behind it, we can certainly consider an alternate language if there's something you'd like to propose.
Because I mean, my thing is that if you look at the Village Green, that was a destination hotel, and now it's being turned into apartment. Does Cottage Grove have what it takes necessarily to be more of a consumer community that a destination type hotel would want to call Cottage Grove home? We have a lot of businesses that go out of business because people don't frequent them enough. There's not enough big things going on immediately around us that somebody would say, okay, well, let's build a 200-room hotel here, or just a 100-room hotel, to justify somebody wanting to do that. Like, I completely agree, it would be an awesome thing to have, but is that something that council wants to look at as a priority when we have a lot bigger issues to be thinking about?
Councilor Heinck has her hand raised also.
Councilor Heinck.
I would like to keep it as a priority, destination hotel. I think of chicken or the egg, dangling the carrot. I do think we have a lot here to make it a destination hotel and not just a stopgap on your way somewhere else. here in town and in the surrounding areas. I like the phrasing of it, and I do think it's a relevant goal.
Counselor Wilson?
I think the idea is wonderful, and I think maybe the language could be adjusted to as a convention hotel. That if it was advertised that way, there are many groups up and down the West Coast that look for areas to have their conventions. If we have other things that attract them to our fair city, they could have their convention here.
Counselor Urban?
Thank you. I think I like the phrase destination hotel. What comes to mind when I think of things like the Gordon, other, they could be boutique ones. Certainly, I think we want to know convention space, because that's we pull off I-5. Want to advertise that, but I think the idea is to, if we can attract it, if we can, it's an aspiration first and foremost. And I think what aspirational goals do, make you look at things in light of what is an impediment to this. What that might inform the urban renewal district. That might inform, hey, we want to wind up here. And yeah, that's the imagery that's coming to my mind. Something with a nice restaurant, bar downstairs, or something that we live across town and be like, let's go on a date to the destination hotel in our town. Kind of thing. I think it's doable.
I do too. And I would like to leave it in as aspirational goal. All right. Well, it looks like
Mayor,
Go
are
ahead.
there other comments on 4.6? Or is there consensus to leave it as is?
Yes, we have a consensus to keep it.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, there's a follow-up.
I'm still thinking on Councilor Settemeyer's question. Might have spaced out while you addressed it. Apologize if I did. But the idea that we do have key performance indicators up on these, it sounds like that's in development, timelines, those kind of things. Would that be provided to us prior to adoption of these goals? Would that be something we could review prior to next meeting, have that in our agenda or packet? I'd find that very helpful, if so.
Well, we can certainly, after the goals are refined and the language is cleaned up, I can certainly send that action spreadsheet to city manager and to Mindy that can pass along to the mayor and council to review in advance of adopting the goals. There are not, KPIs or key performance indicators associated with each of these objectives at this point. That's certainly something that the council could look at in the future, even after adoption. It would most likely take place in a separate work session where you could really dive into each of these and say, okay, what does success look like from our perspective? And, what sort of metrics would we like to assign to these in terms of getting that information for accountability and transparency? But the thing to keep in mind with assigning metrics to the objectives is that it requires a lot of background information, and so that high level of context behind each objective, it just takes time to be able to develop those. And so we typically don't have that level of time to develop the key performance indicators in the goal development process at the council retreat. But that being said, I mean, that's always something. We have other cities that we work with that's something that they want to do as part of that process. And so we just build in extra time for that, or you can do that after the fact. But any of the notes that we've captured, that's going to help inform for staff the implementation that you want to see, and then that reporting structure that you want to see. But we can definitely make sure that you get a chance to review this updated goals spreadsheet with any of the changes to the language. You can see the status and the timeline in the lead department and the notes as well.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments on this goal for community growth, or are we ready to move on to goal number 5 for recreation?
I think we're ready to move on.
All right, great. Okay.
Do we need a consensus on 4.9 though? Correct?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. So that proposed addition, so completing the downtown Main Street revitalization project, doesn't, obviously this is a huge undertaking, a big focus of the city. And so staff brought it up that it didn't come up specifically at the retreat. And I think it's because in our conversations, we are so forward thinking about all of the aspirations and the vision for the future that sometimes it's like you look so far and it's like, wait, I think it was like that day was, or that week was like the groundbreaking of that work. And so anyway, so following up, staff are like, oh, let's make sure that we put that in because it's a huge undertaking of expense and time and resources for the city. And it really, I mean, it's the essence of this community growth goal and a lot of the outcomes that council is driving towards. So,
Do we have a
so that's
consensus?
just a little background on that.
It looks like we have a consensus on that, Ashley.
All right, wonderful. All right, I'll update the language on our end, and so that council gets an updated version with 4.9.
Thank you.
All right, so let's move on to goal number 5. Here we go, which is the recreation goal. So the goal language for recreation, and this is on a previous slide in the earlier version of the slide, and I'll go back just so you guys have it in front of you. Here, there's recreation. So promote a healthy and active community by expanding recreational opportunities, enhancing connectivity, and creating engaging spaces for youth. And the outcomes for this goal that council was focusing on is having a healthy and active community, and then a specific priority area for opportunities for youth specifically, because it was found in the context mapping exercise that we did that there was a gap, currently a gap in the community with opportunities for youth. So families with young children all the way up to like high school students and young adults. And so that's where that youth piece fit it. Focus area came into be. That being said, public comment that was received today, or if there's other comments, those are those pieces of like language or refinements are things that we can talk about tonight. And then in terms of the objectives under this goal, the council developed 3 objectives at the March retreat, and then staff is proposing 2 additional objectives, so for a total of 5. So let me move forward to this goal. So these 5 proposed addition are these 2 down below. So around securing funding to complete improvements at Bohemia Park and then supporting the completion of the BMX track. Are there any refinements needed to this goal, whether in the summary language of the recreation goal or any of these objectives?
Councilor Settermeyer.
The actual goal, ending, creating engaging spaces for youth, in response to several community members that kind of talked like we heard from Bruce Kelch earlier. I just suggest that instead of just ending that sentence with youth, we end it as for youth, senior citizens, and everyone.
Councilor Urban.
I agree with the sentiment. Just say for everyone. Okay. I would just for all, all people.
So creating engaging spaces for all.
I say for all ages.
Oh, for all ages.
Or just all.
Creating.
That's pretty encompassing. All right.
All right, Mayor, does
we have a consensus there?
Consensus? Okay, is the consensus just for engaging spaces for all or for all ages?
I think for all.
For all? Okay, all right, good. I'm seeing
that's a consensus.
All right, good. I'm seeing a thumbs up, so that's good. All right, thank you. Thank you, Council Settermeyer, for bringing
As
that
long
up.
as it's ALL and not AWL.
All right, other questions? I'll go forward to the specific objectives. Oops. Any questions or,
Okay.
or objectives needing clarity before we move on to 4.4 and 4.5? So on, maybe 1, 2, or 3 at this time.
Counselor Sotomayor.
Okay, if I could just, I still see some of these objectives that are so wonderfully, we are working to get that done and we put a check mark. And so, yeah, I'd like to reiterate what Councilman Irving was suggesting. I'd like to see that kind of with the, I guess, the spreadsheet. And I would like to, before we leave the objectives, that we look back at goal number 1 and just kind of see if there's a place for what I would like to propose around goal number 1 objectives, if that belongs on your spreadsheet, or if it's something that I would need to change or ask council to suggest or to consider changing for the objectives before we move forward under community engagement and trust.
Thank you,
I
Councilor.
have some things that if we're going to design these to check them off, I have recommended changes to a bunch of our objectives under goal number 1.
All right. Well, thank you, Councilor, for
right?
raising that. I think that's. Oh, can you hear me?
Uh-oh. We've lost
Oh,
Ashley's
no.
sound.
Oh no.
Oof.
Can you hear me now?
Mindy, is there a way to maybe forward my email to her? Would that be the easy? Oh, she has it. Oh,
Mhm.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ashley, let me try switching the settings again to see if that doesn't clear the problem. All right, let's try it again.
All right. Can you hear me now?
We can.
You
Yes.
can. Okay, wonderful. That was bizarre. I'm so glad that you can. I'm so glad. I swear I didn't hit anything over on my side. Bill, Counselor, thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. And I think after we finish up this goal area 5, if we can open it up, if there are any other comments, whether it's with goal 1, goal 2, or goal 3 from our previous discussion, before we move forward to review the council vision statement and the values, we can certainly do that. Let's make sure that we address goal 5, and then we can go ahead to goal 1. Are there any comments
Counselor
or
Irvin.
questions?
I would just offer for consideration, potentially separating the last part of 5.2, the improve existing parks, into its own goal. While I think the skate park would enhance one of the parks, I think we should set a goal of looking at all of our parks and really make it awesome. That'd be my suggestion.
All right, so there's a proposal to split 5.2 into 2 goals, and one would say work with community partners to raise funding to build a skate park, and then another goal would say work with community partners to raise funding to improve existing parks.
Yeah.
Are there comments
I
from
don't-
the rest of council on this proposed
I'm
split?
just questioning how necessary is it to stipulate in here, work with community partners? Or if these are super high goals, that's going to be
Just
necessary
improve
to
existing
do.
parks.
But you want to build a skate park, improve existing parks. And then how we get there, some other details, certainly.
Counselor Sotomayor.
The part that I think we could pull out of that is the idea that it has to involve pursue funding, the idea of getting funds. But the idea of working with community partners to improve existing parks, I think is wonderful. And that's when we can maybe look at actual like inviting and engaging our community to come and, actually do some work that physically could improve rather than looking for funds.
Counselor Wilson.
Yeah, I like the idea of separating the two goals or objectives. I think maybe language of working with the community, not just the community partners, but working with the community to improve our parks.
All right, so there could be perhaps a proposed language could be work with community, or pursue funding and work with community to improve existing parks.
Not even necessarily the funding, just working with the community to improve parks. It can just be park cleanup. That doesn't require funds.
Counselor Urban.
Skate park will require funds.
Yes, that itself, yeah. Well, it can, but it can.
So
be
leave
done.
the funding in the skate park, and then you can change to just community, work with the community to improve existing parks. So leave the funding for the skate park.
All right. Does everyone feel good about that? Work with, so
Do we have a
proposal?
We have a consensus? Yes, we have a consensus.
Okay, wonderful. All right, I'll make the change on my end for the updated version. If there are no other.
Counselor Merida. Can we not? Did we lose?
Mayor, I can hear you, but I didn't
Okay.
hear. I didn't hear Councilor Meredith's comments.
Oh, it wasn't meant. It was just.
Oh, okay.
Aside, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. If there's no further comments on 5.1, 5.2, or 5.3, I'll just open it up to see if there's any comments on the proposed additions. So 5.4 and 5.5 around Bohemia Park, and then the support completion of the BMX track, or if there's consensus to move forward and add those.
You have consensus.
All right. Great. Do we feel good about goal number 5?
Yes, we do.
All right. Thank you. All right. At this time, before we move on to looking at the council vision statement and the values, if there's been any other thoughts or refinements or proposals or discussions that council would like to raise on goal 1, 2, or 3, and just for organization's sake, why don't we just go through numerically so we don't jump around if there's other ones. But so we'll just start with goal 1, and I know Council Settlemyer, you had some comments around this goal if you'd like to share those at this time.
I went into our whole retreat idea with the idea that if we came out of there feeling like there were ways where we were responding to our community about how to be transparent and seeking community input in really focused ways, that it would feel like a really big win. That's essentially why I said I wanted to be on city council. And I felt really good when we were doing all of our talks, that I felt that was something we agreed on, that people wanted to make sure that there was trust, And so when I looked at community engagement and trust and looked at objectives, I went down and anywhere in there where I totally agree with increase and improve communication about upcoming city council meeting topics. But okay, how do we do that? So I just took a shot at it and I changed instead to some ways that in my ideas, we could actually do that. And it would drive what we are trying to do that. And if somebody said, why aren't you doing that? Then we would be showing we aren't following through with what we said we were going to do. And so if you will look at that, for instance, 1.1, I put advertise city council meetings by submitting them as PSA to KNND, listing in Friday update, putting them on chamber calendar and other outlets as we discover them. So as the year goes, that can change in things. For 1.2, you know, Friday update is a wonderful tool. Right now, there's a little under 300 people of our community that are there. But if our goal was something like, so number 2 says increase subscribers, well, let's put a goal on it. So increase subscriptions to Friday Update and Text My Gov to 2,000 each. It's a doable thing. If that's something that every time I have an opportunity to talk to somebody who says, I don't understand what's going on, I push this forward. And if the council pushes that forward over and over, we're trying to be more transparent and we're looking for things to move back and forth. Let me see. Do you want me to keep going with the other 2 suggestions I have for these, or should I stop now?
Well, why don't, just for the sake of, you know, keeping us all organized, let me address the comments for the first and second.
Okay.
I think all of this is really great input, and it provides great context for staff's implementation of these goals. And I have those items captured. So Mindy did share the notes that you sent, and so that I have those, and I can add that context into the notes section to aid in implementation. The way that we had, like, for instance, objective 1.1 written, increasing and improving communication about upcoming city council meeting topics, it's written in a way that's outcome focused. And so at the retreat, we started the retreat with focusing on what are the outcomes that council wants to see, and thinking about, you know, the differences between, you know, the role of council and the role of staff. And so council sets the what, you set the direction, the policy, and then it's on the staff side for the implementation piece. So carrying out the programs and the policies, carrying out the how. And that's why at the council retreat, it's so valuable to have both council and staff in the room at the same time, because as council, or as you're sharing your intentions and your intentions for policy direction and what you'd like to see around these objectives, staff is taking notes, and I'm taking notes, and we're, you know, gathering all of that to aid in that implementation piece. And so it doesn't have to go in that objective, in the specific language of the objective, it goes in the notes, and then staff uses that for implementation. And then if there's anything that's like important, that is a specific thing that you would like reporting on for implementation, those quarterly reports, we make note of that. So, and so if you're interested in, you know, if there's outreach that's being done at the local radio station, staff will take note of that and then make sure that they address that in their quarterly staff reports. Same with objective 1.2 around subscribers. If you're interested in tracking this, you know, the specific number of subscribers, that's information that can be recorded over time and shared with the council on a quarterly basis, so they can let you know how the subscriber rate is changing over time. So that's just some comments on those. So it's really good information and context for staff for their implementation. And then but in terms of putting it in the objective language itself, it's recommended that, we're focusing on the outcomes that council wants to see. And then you provide also some additional context in what that might look like. And then staff carries that forward to carry out those objectives.
Counselor Sotomayor.
Thank you for that idea. But as I look to some of these objectives, they are very specific. And like I said, I really think that saying increase and improve communication about upcoming city council meetings is not specific enough to be able to point at and say, really, we are working on it. I would like to see some specifics in our community engagement and trust objectives. Besides restart the youth advisory committee, I think that that's maybe the only thing that we can go and on this part and just put a check mark beside it. I'm not sure I've got the right ones. That's why I kind of wanted to have us have a subcommittee to look at this. I'm not sold on any one of these things, but I want more check mark items for the community to look at under this community engagement and trust objective that we can hang our hat on and we can continue to push towards, and the community can say, I see that, and we can feel and we can be comfortable that we're moving towards that.
Counselor Urban.
So I'm hearing both of this. I too came prepared with bullet lists of action items to this end. And I can perceive that if all 7 of us were to give our list of due action items to staff, one, they would be in conflict. One, it's just not the right way to do it. So I guess I'm struggling with where the line of policy ends and where the implementation begins. Tracking number of volunteer hours in the community. There's a whole list of these things. They're good ideas. Are you indicating that while that's kind of the job of each council meeting that we get reports for, or that we're going to inform what do we want to see in the quarterly reports, or it's just going to be this kind of feedback process of actually, I think we should implement this program, and it's not the place for the goals and objectives? Or would you like us to submit all of these notes to you and then you distill them into the other? I'm a little concerned, I guess, as well. I share some of this.
Mr. Sauerwein.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. Just following up on something Ashley was saying is staff is providing you with a quarterly financial report going through the budget, and we'd intended to expand that to include a quarterly report going through the council's goals and objectives. So you'll be getting that feedback on a quarterly basis. Having said that, this is a bit of an organic process, guys. Some of the things the council member raised specifically. I think you all know that we do provide information to the local radio station, local media. I'm on the Beeper show before every city council meeting, going through the city council agenda for folks. And, our Friday update is really a letter from city staff to the council and to the public. And, we would like to expand the number of folks who participate in it. And I can tell you that, just as you said that, you drive people toward it and you recommend it to people. City staff does that as well. We do the same thing with our Text My Gov. is try to get more people to sign up for it. And, anything from, concerts in the park to other city activities, we do that. So we can certainly provide you with, the statistical information at quarterly updates on these things. And, and of course, if you're interested in sending out additional information to the community, you guys are elected officials. If you want to send out your own Friday update, you're certainly free to do that.
Well, and I would just like to add that I understand that it's communications forever changing. And so to be so specific in those goals, I think might be a tall order. And I think this would be something that we can bring up in concerns of council and make sure that staff is hearing us and hearing from the public where we're deficient. And so I think that this is probably a good start. And I would definitely suggest getting all of our notes to staff so that they can start working towards that. But I think it might be next to impossible to list absolutely everything. Counselor Settlemeyer.
So it's appropriate to just bring up items as we see that we can address during councilor updates.
I would say.
So I should save this list for then?
Absolutely correct. I would say, especially if you see a deficiency someplace or an area that you think should be worked on. But I think having a broader goal instead of incredibly specific, I think would be to our advantage. And then as we see the progression in areas that we're excelling in, that would be what I would think would be effective.
So broad goals for engagement and trust is an okay way to move forward, others feel?
One other thing that I would add to the discussion is that the outcomes that council, when you talked about, building a goal around community engagement and trust. So again, the languages of this goal is to build community trust and engagement by enhancing communication, increasing transparency, and expanding opportunities for public participation in city government. And the outcomes that you're driving toward are community trust, positive feedback and support from the community, making sure that the community feels involved in the process, and increased public participation in that process. Those are the outcomes that you're driving towards. And then all of these objectives help get you there. And so you want to be able to provide flexibility in getting there and trying different things. And so the city is already undergoing a lot of different methods and tools and things that they're doing. And those things can be reported to you on a regular basis. And then that there can be discussion like, well, could we try this or this for further improvements? And so keeping it, focused on the outcomes would be what my recommendation as well, because it provides flexibility in for staff and how they get to those outcomes. And they can try different methods and tools and report back. And it's kind of that organic process that the city manager was speaking to.
Councilor Urban.
I think I've identified the deficiency or the minimum viable product to address this. A goal that says that we are going to survey the public. We are going to see how we're going to elicit the public's response as part of the report back on the measurables. That's what I'm most uncomfortable with. How do we measure? There's going to be attempts at different ways to improve this engagement, but one vital thing that's missing is we need the feedback from residents.
All right. So Ashley, did you hear that?
Yeah.
So in our outcomes, we would like to put feedback from the community.
And at the outcomes, or is there a proposal to create a new objective around
a new objective?
New objective?
Yes.
Okay. And Councilor Irvin, what would the proposed language be for that objective? And I can
Well, we
start
can
formulating
modify what
something.
I had written, have public trust and local government being the concept, monitor residents' trust in local government through surveys or other feedback mechanisms, working to maintain transparency, accountability, and responsiveness to community needs. But I think the operative pieces there are elicit feedback from residents regarding.
All right, so the objective would be around conducting a community survey, which would provide input on the level of trust in local government. So
Community survey and or other feedback mechanisms. We had discussion about town halls and other things, so I wouldn't want to limit it just to that. But certainly I think we should survey the public on how we're doing.
do you think that we could include, so I'm looking at 1.5, increase in-person community engagement opportunities. You could refine that goal to increase community engagement opportunities in person, and you could say in-person and digital engagement opportunities. And then in the context, it has town halls and a community survey. So there's two ways to go about that. You could refine 1.5, or you could create a new goal.
I think refining.
Refine.
I think we have a consensus on refine 1.5.
Okay.
Councillor Lammerman.
Madam Mayor, Council, just to kind of touch on that a little bit, I was maybe just adding a survey to the Friday update. Every Friday, we can have a way for the community that would also increase the amount of engagement with that platform, but a way for them to basically take a survey on how do you feel council's doing? How do you feel the city's doing? What could be done better? That could be a fairly simple and implementable way that we can get input from the community.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. One of the things I've discussed with a couple of you previously, and I was going to include it really in my evaluation at the end of this year, is doing an annual city survey. What a lot of cities do is, it doesn't have to be huge. It can only be, maybe 8 or 10 questions, but doing an annual city survey. And the value to that is not in the individual survey each year, it's in the longitudinal data that you can collect. So for example, if 4 years in a row, people speak very highly of our city parks and they're getting like an 80-90%, and suddenly they get a 60% in 1 year. Okay, what happened? And just the opposite is true. If suddenly, if our parks have regularly been getting a 60 or a 70, and we have 1 year where we get a 95, okay, what did we do right this year? Let's figure out how we can replicate that. And, that's one of the suggestions that I was going to make to you. There's money involved in it, because usually you should use an outside firm to make sure that the survey is valid. But that's definitely something that other cities do. I'm not inventing the wheel here. But I think that's one way to reach out to your community on an annual basis. And again, the value is not in the first year. The value is in the 5th or 6th year if you do an annual survey like that.
All right. Are we ready?
Great. Well, I've made the change to 1.5. Thank you, Mayor. And then before we move on to council vision statement and values, are there any other comments in the goal areas that we haven't covered already?
Councillor Mary Day.
I believe this might fall under goal section 2, but I've noticed that most every one of our council meetings, either citizens or members of the council during concerns of council, has something to say about the effects of having unhoused people in our town. And we had talked about maybe trying to do a subcommittee to discuss that and refine our policy to move it from what was described as a work in progress to something more tangible. We discussed talking about it at the retreat. We did not. And so I'm wondering about developing a point to set a public process to create a policy that requires less staff time for our police department and public works department to manage the problem more accessible to the rest of the community. I don't know an exact language, but I think it is something that we need to get more clear than it is at this point, because it's a lot of work for our police department and public works, and nobody seems to be happy with the overall results. So is that other members of the council, does that sound like something we should include?
Counselor?
I think it behooves us to acknowledge this as an issue that we do have as a council. Starting at the minimum, we should maintain compliance. State applicable laws with regard to providing the necessary accommodations. And then the second part was to convene a more specific policy discussion as to where do we go from here.
Yeah, through a public process. So.
This is a touchy thing to put in our goal setting to me, because it's still so fluid right now in the legislature with House Bill 3115. And they're continually making changes. And one of the things that League of Oregon Cities is pushing is to find out what objectively reasonable is, because that's still not, it's still very ambiguous, to say the least. And so for us to put this in a goal setting session, I think our goals, I think could actually set us up for potential lawsuit. As far as we'd have to be very careful at crafting something like this on what exactly we're saying, unless it's just a straight across the board enforcement. So it's touchy. So that would be my only advisement there, just because it's on the floor right now, that we may want to wait and revisit this after we have a little more clarity on what the law is. Because right now we don't know. Counselor Suttermeyer.
I'm confused. When I asked about policy of the unhoused earlier this year, I was told that there was a policy and I was somehow deficient in my background information. Is what it felt like at the time. And so I guess I understand that there is law that says there needs to be a safe overnight place and that we're doing that. Are we saying that is the only piece of policy that we have? Is okay, then yes, I understand that. Thank you.
You have something?
Well, I'm thinking even of there's some things that need to be addressed. The camping in the yard policy.
Yes.
Is one. Parking in the streets needs to be revisited, I think. So, I mean, there's goals that I think we could agree on that we need to revisit. I'm trying to craft it in my mind right now. If we're to have a policy, we're trying to minimize the liability of the city while ensuring the highest quality of life for all residents of Cottage Grove.
Okay.
That guides us into, is this working? Is that backyard policy working? Not an implementation. So what can be changed? Is the overnight camp, can it just be overnight? Does it have to be modified in some way? Like the policy should be broad enough that we're trying to maximize quality of life for all residents while mitigating being financially responsible from the city perspective.
So there's been a lot of discussion. Is there a proposal for a new
That's
objective?
a broad goal, not a specific. Yeah. Ms. Roberts?
Mayor, thank you. I just want to encourage all of you. It's been noted that it's difficult to hear some of you online, so side conversations don't work, and the microphones, you have to talk specifically into the end of the mic when you turn your head to talk to your fellow neighbor. I know we want to look at each other when we're talking, but then it can't be captured. Thank you.
Do we want to set a broader goal here? Counselor Lammerman?
Madam Mayor, Council, I would recommend waiting on trying to set something. I mean, it would behoove us to maybe revisit some of our ordinance, like we've discussed on the parking and all that. But to actually set any sort of new ordinance or make any actual hard changes, I think we should wait and figure out what we're legally able to do either on the state or federal level before we fully address the unhoused situation.
Counselor Irvin?
So one of the sessions I sat through this past week was on, well, there's two of them on this topic. The update, the legislative update about what's the progress. At least what was purported is it does not look like, there we go. It does not look like we're going to get a repeal of 3115. We have limited case, I think 5 cases get to the issues that are involved in it. New lawsuits are coming out against Grants Pass. And part of it is specific to not having accommodations during the day for those who work as part of this unfolding of what is reasonable, objectively reasonable from the perspective of the person experiencing homelessness. I think it might do us well to acknowledge, to have something written, a stated goal of how we're approaching this that demonstrates that we are not anti-homeless, because we're not. We are trying to balance the all things considered, the laws, our circumstances, and the residents as a whole. We're trying to achieve the highest quality of life for everyone. Which is a balancing act, which includes law enforcement, which includes staff time and financial resources. To have that stated, I think can serve us quite well in the future with any future changes we make, because this is the will of the council to do this. There's no animus. That's the goal. And so I would support adding that as an objective. Welcome any further discussion on that.
So what you're suggesting is a broad goal that this council abiding by the laws.
Yeah, part of what these sports evidently are looking at are the conversations had by and statements made by council members of whether there's animus being harbored towards populations as to whether or not they pick up and set up lawsuits against cities. So I think it behooves us to state our position. This is where we're coming from. This is what we're trying to do.
Well, we do have a past history too of having camps. So I think that also behooves us. We've tracked that. So my issue would be being very, I would still want carried away in on this, honestly. Counselor Lammerman.
In my opinion, I think we already kind of addressed this in our stance on it by closing the camps and establishing the safe sleep site as what our stance was.
Well, and trying the camps, and then also getting other residents possibility of lawsuits of the neighboring properties. And, so we were kind of in a no-win situation. And when that can all be logged. And so for me, I would just really like the attorney's outlook on this before we put anything in writing that not that I'm against it. I just want to be careful here. Just,
I think we should just keep what we have at the moment and maybe relook and possibly revise some of our standing ordinances if they need to be addressed. But other than that, I think as a city and the community, I think we're doing what we need to do. Not everybody's going to be happy with it, like everyone keeps stating, but the majority of the community seems okay with what the city is doing.
But haven't we acknowledged that things are changing?
well,
Could?
the possibility with the whole Grants Pass case is they have not established that yet. And so we're still waiting on court cases to see what happens. They definitely are fighting a lawsuit right now, but nothing has been established through the courts yet. There hasn't been any change yet. And so typically that is what we go off of, is the legal cases that have been established. And so right now, this is where we're still at as a city.
So the idea of monitoring and adjusting as more information comes doesn't, I mean, I agree with what several people have said. It's pretty big time spent. Community input comes in all of the time for us not to have under safe and thriving communities something that says we are going to continue to monitor and adjust as things come forward, and have the word unhoused somewhere in that, in the considerations of the council seems.
I like I said, I'm not against it, but I would just like the legal input on before we put anything in writing. Counselor Hink.
I agree. I think we need to hold off. I don't see the harm in holding off and getting a little buy-in from the attorneys. I think that's the safest bet. We don't know what we don't know right now. And that's my opinion.
All right, I'm not hearing a strong, it seems pretty split on whether or not something needs to be added in the goals. And so I'm wondering if we just need to go through, we need to have a clear proposal for what the addition would be. And then once we have that, then I think maybe we need to go, if we need to do a quick hand raise. It's a little tricky being on the other side of the screen, but I know that I've done the math over here. I don't know that I have a clear sense of the direction either way. It seems like just.
Counselor.
I'll update my piece. While I support acknowledging, and it's a signal to the community, it's a statement that at least we know where we're going. I would like to address our policy going forward and how we're going to approach the issue of homelessness in the community. But I would absolutely love our conversation and considerations to be run through the attorney to see what the most prudent course of action is as it relates to the council. So I would be happy to hear back from our attorney and make that consideration. I don't know that we need a proposed objective necessarily at this. Wait to hear from her.
Mm-hmm. Counselor Merida.
Could we have a placeholder to say an asterisk working on it?
We could do that.
Yeah, because I think you stated it very clearly, Councillor Irvin, kind of what the intent is, that yes, we we do have problems with illegal camping and other things that are a nuisance to residents and to our staff. And it's not a perfect solution. So it has solved some of our issues, but it's created others. So we still need to continue to refine and
Well,
look
why
for
don't-
solutions.
What do you think of this? If we put in there that we could refine our ordinances and policy as the laws unfold? Something.
And approved by the attorneys.
And with attorney approval for best practice, something along those lines, a placeholder.
I think that's what I'm supposed. That we want to wait to see, because I would be in favor of putting that, but I agree. Let's see what the attorney says. If she gives a green light on something of that nature, then so be it. I also support, you want to put a placeholder in there for our statement on unhoused policy.
I'm good either way.
Yeah, I think that would keep it in focus if we had the placeholder unhoused policy asterisk, something like that. If everyone is in agreement.
It just occurred to me, these are goals. So maybe the goal is to maintain a dynamic unhoused policy.
Okay.
Oh. It's a goal.
Counselor Wilson.
Yeah, as I stated, it is a goal. These are goals and objectives. These are not policy at this point. So having a goal of addressing the situation of the unhoused within the city of Cottage Grove to the best of the city's objectives for a safe and thriving community as directed by legal counsel.
So I'm hearing there might be a proposal. I've heard it a couple different ways. One option.
Go ahead, Ashley.
One could be.
We just lost Ashley again.
Oh no, you can't hear me again.
Whoops.
Oh, Mindy, help me out.
Ashley, give me a second. I'm going to try to switch the speakers and see if that doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
Fix our sound.
All right, give it a try.
All right, can you hear me now?
We can, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, what I was trying to say, sorry, excuse me, was that I've heard a couple different proposal options that are similar that we could consider here. The first would be what I heard was refine city ordinances and policy related to unhoused population. Do one of that. Or another way that you could put it in there in the goals is like address city ordinances and policy related to unhoused population. I'm hesitant to recommend putting an asterisk next to one of your goals. I think a different way to go about it would either you can put it in the goals and have it be around, create a policy around unhoused population and have it be there. And then, like it was said, I think it was Counselor Wilson maybe said it, that it's aspirational, that you're not actually creating the policy at this time. It's just you're setting a goal to create a policy. And so then you can have that work be done. And of course, that's going to be done in accordance with applicable, state laws and any things that are of that nature that are coming, updates and working with your city attorney. If there's not a comfort level with the council at this time to put it in the goals as in a specific objective, then my recommendation would be to put it in a parking lot, and then we can capture that in your in the spreadsheet as under the parking lot. So it wouldn't be an official objective, but it would be listed there as an important item so that eyes continue to stay on that. And then as you refine your goals into the future, if you would like to, if there's consensus to make a more specific goal at that time, once you have more information from the legislature and other updates, then you can do so at that time. So those would be my recommendations, either putting something in that's more broad around refining city ordinances and or developing a policy related to the house population, or option two, putting it in your parking lot for your goals so that so you don't lose track of it.
I'm definitely more comfortable putting it in a parking lot. Counselor Urban?
I can't forget how many times we pointed to our goal setting session, said this is when we'll address this. I meant it when I said it. The community wants to know what we're doing. I think there's a wise way to articulate it. I'm still in favor of requesting Carrie to review this and see if there is a objective that we can add to this before we adopt it. If she adopted, if she said, if the recommendation is no, we advise against it right now. You know we need to address these things. If we don't put it in, then so be it. But I think we owe it to the community to pursue this.
So I guess I'm unclear on what so it's just a very broad,
Yeah, it's as broad as if someone asked the question, what are we doing with regard to the unhoused? How are we proceeding? What should I expect going forward? It would be to address that. Look, my position would be, we are trying to maximize the quality of life for every resident in Cottage Grove and stay legal, and while balancing the fiscal responsibility we have as a city.
so would you be comfortable putting it in a goal specifically like that?
I would be, yeah. But once again, I'm willing to defer to legal to say,
Why?
is there some hazard that I foresee by doing that before we do it? I think that was the idea of the hold the space for it so we don't forget. We want to hear back from the attorney on this.
Well, the way you just said it right there, I would be comfortable with. But it wouldn't be policy. It's not,
I don't foresee it being an issue, but I'm not the legal opinion.
yeah. So, all right. So, but we still would need her opinion. So that's why I would say parking lot as opposed to goal. Correct?
I think putting it in a parking lot pending legal review would maybe be the best way to put that. Because I mean, we're still going to look at it, but we're waiting for the attorney's viewpoint on that. And then we can fully go in and address it.
The utility of having it hold space, it's because there are many that expect us to just blow past it and not address it. So that's a olive branch saying we are going to address it. We're going to hear back from the attorneys. This isn't a ploy to just sweep things under the rug. That's why I'm like, yeah, split it. We'll hear back from the attorney and see what they say, and we can further the discussion. But it's an acting in good faith.
So maybe we just put in a spot in there for review policies and ordinances surrounding the unhoused community with the assistance of legal counsel. Could we put something like that in there?
Mr. Sauerwein?
Oh, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. Two things. First is, as we have discussed this evening, if we say we want to follow state law, given my usual pathological paranoia about our dear friends in Salem, we don't really know what state law is going to be 3, 6, 9, 12 months from now. So I think it's behooves us to keep that in mind. And second, rather than us trying to wordsmith something on the fly, I would certainly be more comfortable with us, asking our city attorney, and this doesn't have to be in the goals or objectives, and just be, a consensus of council, city manager, please talk with the city attorney, and have the city attorney actually give you the magic words for how something would be phrased and bring it back to you.
Counselor.
But is there something that's going to be posted somewhere where this is the draft of our objectives moving forward? And should there just be, I don't even mind if there's just an empty space under this particular list of things. And even the empty space, just having nothing but the number there, so that can be referenced and people can say, like was stated, we do want this here. And I hope that there are people in our community that are going to ask, where is the unhoused part of this? And we're saying, yeah, we're working on it. And maybe, I think that I don't understand what parking lot means, I guess. Is that like making a parking space for it? And I'm happy with it. Wonderful.
That's exactly it. But we just want legal counsel to give us some suggestions. So, sorry. All right. So are we comfortable with that? Right. Ashley.
So another option I've heard, just kind of piecing together different comments there, that you could add an objective specifically that says review and update ordinances and policy surrounding the unhoused community. And then it gives you the flexibility in terms of how state law unfolds, comments and recommendations from your city attorney. But it does state that this is something that city council is prioritizing looking at. And so you do have that accountability and that talking point with the community. So if that's a proposed language. So around review and update ordinances and policy surrounding the unhoused community. And so we could, if there's consensus from council, we could add that in under number 2.
I agree. I like her idea.
I think that sounds great, but I'd like to hear from our attorney.
So I think the consensus that I received is that we're going to hear from the attorney and then we'll update this goal.
Okay, I'll make a note here. All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Are there other comments before we look at the council vision statement and values?
Councilor Settlemeyer.
I'm sorry. No, I'm not really sorry. Under goal number 3, financial sustainability. 3.2. I found myself staring at this research and present general funding options for public safety and library to maintain service levels for city operations. And I dug in, I did my homework, I went through last year's budget and the introduction and the explanations, and I found this nice handy little thing that helped me learn a little bit where we had a dollar bill and it said taxes go to these things. And I was trying to find somewhere where there was some kind of pot of money that only could go to the library and the public works. And no, the taxes go to a lot of things. And I agree with the wording that we want to maintain service levels for city operations. So my suggestion is to, yes, I think that administration, it's important for us to be addressing in 3.2, and public safety and public works and the library and internal support and debt services. Everything that the taxes go to pay, when we consider that stuff, I mean, some of them, maybe it means we have to, we've got to take care of that with these funds. I think those are nice things to enter into our financial sustainability discussions, that research and present general funding options for all general fund departments instead of just those two.
Are there comments on the proposal to change 3.2 to focus on all?
Anyone else?
There's consensus to change it.
So what I'm,
Can we support?
so what I'm hearing you say is just not necessarily everything that's in your parentheses here, but just ending it as all general fund departments, period. Just as a way of
Just to
pointing
kind
out
of-
all of the different.
Yeah,
sections. Okay.
that's what I found in my homework, is at least last year's budget was the taxes went into all of those departments. So let's make sure we can try and sort out the issue with and support everybody.
So, all right, so are we thinking we want to change that? Counselor Irvin?
I feel like I get the sentiment, just like we did with the recreation side of things, where we weren't just calling out youth and seniors and everyone. What we lose in doing that, I think, is a reality that something has to change with public safety. Specifically, it's unsustainable in its current mode. But if you're, and I don't want to lose that we have an issue at hand by just saying, oh, just sort everything, just balance everything. What you lose in that is, well, why did we state that goal in the first place? And maybe that's what is handled in the notes. What do we mean by that? Yeah, I think that there is, it's not like we're not being inclusive. We have an issue really specifically with a couple of different ones. That their services are at risk if we don't do something, the service levels. That's my understanding. So I would just caution and welcome thoughts on that.
So the idea, I mean, you mentioned something really, important. And I think if we are saying that there's a couple of these that are having issues, the background, when we're talking about being transparent and clear with things, is okay, here's the pot of money. Here's where that pot of money is going. And if every other thing is fixed, that's stepping stones to maybe it is just one of these things that has to change or whatever, but yeah, I think it's real important to not pigeonhole things and not provide some background why it's just that, you know, as we move forward in big things. And that if that's where it leads, that's fair. But I don't know, just now I'm going from something specific to asking for something more general. And I was told more general was good. And I'm hoping that I learned it there.
And you are correct that we were saying more general is good, but except for we've established that these are two areas that we are specifically struggling to fund, and our library and our policing. And they, we're looking at other creative ways, possibly some grants, other ways of funding these two specifically. And they can't use tourism dollars that other areas can. And so I think that's why we set those two apart. Counselor.
Okay, once again, going through as well as I could, seeing where money goes and what the sources are. I know tourism dollars are, you know, kind of pigeonholed, but administration, public safety, public works, the library, I didn't quite understand the internal support department, you know, totally with what is going on there. But funds that go into each of those items come from similar places, at least part of what goes into all those departments. So I would, yeah.
We have a time check. It's
Okay.
9 p.m. Yes. So do we want to continue? "15 more minutes. I do want to mention that it is Mindy's birthday. Ashley?
So just for interest of time, I
Oh,
want
she
to.
has no sound.
Oh no, it lost me again. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, you can hear me. Okay. Thank you. I was just going to say thank you, Mayor. In the interest of time, a comment with the nature of your council goals. The council goals are not a checklist of all of the things that the city does or a strategic plan for the organization. It's a way for the council to define your priorities for the community. And so recalling the discussion around this particular topic at the retreat, what I recall is this, you know, a need specifically for funding for public safety and the library. And if funding is not found or allocated for public safety or library, then, you know, the city and the community would be looking at a reduction in service levels to the community. And so it was a priority of this council to focus specifically on public safety and the library. Now, that doesn't mean that the city and the council is not going to also look to be funding other areas of it within the general fund as well. But again, the council goals are an opportunity to share, okay, what are the priority areas that we're looking at right now? So I don't know if that helps provide any clarity for that particular item. But also I'd be interested to hear, sorry, just one moment. I would just also be interested to hear from other members of council to see if they're also share that perspective, and also just for interest of time, so that we can reserve some time to go through the vision and the values.
I wanted to clarify with Council Settlemyer is what I'm hearing you say. It's not either or. Don't pit public safety and library against each other. We could reduce any of these other allocations, public works, because it all comes from the same pot. Is that essentially what you're wanting to acknowledge?
I think I would like that to be said, whether it's a reality or not moving forward. I mean, people talk about how yes. Okay, let me make it simple. I'd like every discussion to start with all and clearly make the case of why it ends there. Because I was there, I didn't learn why it boiled down to public safety and library. And it feels like I'm going to be told again that it's something I should have learned somewhere, and I didn't. So I'm wondering how the community is supposed to put those things together, and that me as a council member should not say this is an important part going forward.
I agree. We're looking at the whole general fund. You know the context. We have the notes about the issues that have come up that are most prominent. But if we acknowledge that we're looking at the general fund, all things funded with the general fund have to be addressed. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, Councillor Wilson.
I think I would tend to agree that the stating as an objective that we do need to look at the entire general fund. So having it stated that way without the specifics, knowing that we have specifics in our notes to staff, that's something that we've verbalized to them in past, and we'll continue to do so as we go through the budget process. But as a stated objective, we need to look at the entire general fund. So having those specific things not necessarily stated in the objective, I think is actually better.
Right. So
I think that's
you just want to change that goal to research and present.
I have some notes here, Mayor.
Okay.
Perhaps it could be changed to research and present funding options for the general fund to maintain service levels for city operations.
And with that, do we have a consensus on that? All right. Looks, Councillor Lammerman.
Madam Mayor, Council, I think if we were to basically revise 3.2 to research and present general funding options for city services, we could probably do away with 3.5, 3.4, 3.3, because most of them basically say the same thing.
They do.
So if we're generalizing 3.2 to basically just say, how do we increase the general fund to fund city operations, we could pretty much get rid of the other ones.
I do remember the council adding 3.5 for that reason. So we could change it.
It's in my opinion, it was just calling out that we need to look for additional funding for police and library. That's the way I read that. And all the rest are there. So it's calling out where we're a little deficient and, we just eliminated a position and we haven't even filled all our positions with the police department yet. And so that, in my opinion, is we're calling that out as an issue. You see the rest of them, Counselor Settlemeyer? That is more broad.
So my point would be then I'd be okay with it if we just got rid of 3.2.
But then you're taking away that, so you don't want to.
Because like you said, 3.5, we're exploring all options for additional funding to maintain core city services to the community. And when we talk about what, which places we want to emphasize, this is where we want different than balancing these dollars, then there's a way to make this happen where this percentage stays the same and this percentage stays the same, and we can augment that percentage. That's the conversation that 3.5 has. That isn't the conversation that 3.2 says. That's a little side note.
So you prefer to take out that.
Just 3.2. If we get rid of 3.2, I agree with people. We've taken care of these other, we broke that into 2 goals down below.
Christine, Counselor Hink, sorry.
That's okay. I've heard what everybody has said, and I can see both sides, but I'm leaning more towards keeping 3.2 the way it is, because if we're listening to the public, this has been a hot button topic since I hopped into this arena, and it's been about police or library or how to keep both. And I think it's good to call it out singularly, or as it is in 3.2.
Counselor Suttermeyer.
That is new to me, where it's police or library. That's what we're writing 3.2 for. Did I mishear?
I don't, that's quite what she said, Counselor Hink.
Please, yeah.
I've heard numerous times in the community through my campaign that question come up quite a bit. When I did my radio interview, that came up specifically. I've heard numerous members of the public talk about their concerns about losing the library, or having to sacrifice public safety. And yeah, that's been my experience.
It actually used to be a question that was delivered when you were applying for city council. Do you remember that, Counselor Irvin? Yeah. So that's what she means. So it's bringing it. So what she's saying is bringing it to the attention, the same that people are saying for the in-house situation, is that leaving it on there, it's showing the public that we're looking at it, is her point. Counselor Irvin.
So yes, it has been framed that way.
Yes.
I typically reject the framings that others provide for me. I want to frame it my own way. So, while I understand acknowledging it, that's why I'm going, okay, we know the context, we know the framing, but really everything is on the table, and it isn't public safety versus library. It's how do we maximize all of the services that we provide, whether it be through city funding and tax base or through philanthropy or others, we want to maintain the highest level of service that's sustainable going forward. We have a budget of our own to deal with. We need to be responsible over that, but we also want to involve the community and tell them what things are at risk and what we can afford, and see if there's a step up in any other place. So I think acknowledging that, I don't think we have to pit public safety against the library. I think that's it. Yes, it has been a question. It's not necessary to do that. Look at everything. But the public has that in their mind, so we should bear that in mind.
Counselor Lammerman.
Madam Mayor, Council. So what if we just get rid of library from 3.2? Because I think we still need to have a big emphasis on public safety, being the fact that they are, no offense, Chief, the biggest consumer of our general budget. So if we can figure out ways to either through, like you said, philanthropy or bonds or something to help the long-term stability of our public safety, then that would allow more money to be allocated to things like the library or the core services. So what if we just take the library out, lump that in with like 3.4 or something, and make 3.2 its own thing about public safety? Because then you're not necessarily putting them against each other. You're isolating the one from the other.
Okay. I could agree to that. Looks like we have a consensus on that. I see all head nods.
All right.
And want to reiterate, it's now 9:15. So do we want to end it here and go on to report from concerns of council, report from city manager, and revisit this? How many more do we have? Is this it? No, we have core values. Another 5. Councilor Mary Day.
Thank you, Mayor. Does anyone else of the council have any other concerns with any of the 5 goal areas? Yeah, then I would agree that with Council Lammerman to let's take a look. I don't think the other things would be very contentious.
Okay.
Call it a wrap.
All right. We have a consensus. Go ahead, Ashley.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. And I realize my screen share, I'm going to reshare. All right. Can everyone see that? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, nothing
Okay, great.
changed from our perspective.
We-
We're looking at number 3, financial stability.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So the council vision. So the purpose of the council vision statement is it's like a summary statement that captures the essence of all 5 of your goals. And the idea behind having a council vision statement, we don't always do that, but there in the outreach in talking with you, there was a desire to have like a rallying cry or something that unified the council together. That is a useful statement that's easy to remember. You could put it on documents of the city. You can share it out with the community, and it really succinctly states like, this is what we're here to do. This is what we're prioritizing together as this council. And so in looking at all of the 5 goal areas and the supporting objectives, I came up with this phrase here for the council vision statement to be this. So building a thriving, connected, and resilient community rooted in financial stability, sustainable growth, and active engagement. So the idea here is that, really highlighting that financial sustainability being like the foundation of all of the city services and the ability to have a strong organization and to do all the things that you want to do, have that sustainable growth. So that thriving community, balanced economy, it captures that tourism. It also captures, safety, feeling of safety. And then also underpinning all of this too is that active engagement through community engagement and trust and transparency. So that's kind of a little bit of background on how the council vision statement was developed. I don't know if there's any comments or questions, or for sake of time, if there's anything that you specifically like about this statement, or if there's something that really that hits you wrong, you can let me know, and then we can make any adjustments.
Everyone like it? Counselor Lammerman.
Madam Mayor, Council, I think maybe just at the end there with active engagement, add and trust of the community or something along those lines. Because our main thing that we want to do is instill the trust of the community with the city council. So we can add that somewhere in there. That'd be awesome.
That's great. No, that's a great addition. Thank you. Other comments on the vision statement?
Oh, looks good.
All right, great. All right, let's look at the values. And so just before I advance to the next screen, the values, these, like the vision statement and the goals, these are a result of the conversations that we had at the March retreat when we talked about working together and our roles and responsibilities. And we also specifically asked the question on what each member needs to be successful as working as part of this team. And so these values really come together as your shared commitment for how you're agreeing to work together to advance your goals. So that's a little bit of background in terms of how these were formulated. And so there's five team values. So accountability and transparency, integrity, collaboration, being one team, and dedication. And so having open and honest communication and clear decision making, so that you're maintaining and building trust with each other and with the community. Integrity is just around having, upholding the highest ethical standards and guided by the strong moral compass and unwavering commitment as stewards of community resources. Collaboration is around a collaborative environment built on trust and respect, valuing each other's perspectives, remaining open to new ideas, and embracing flexibility to ensure effective solutions. That was something that really came through in the conversations back in March. When we were talking about our ground rules or just what we need for success, the ability to be flexible and collaborate and stay open and nimble and working through solutions together. One team, we talked about that too. And so what does that look like? So we're, the authority of councils is not with one individual person, but with the body. And so accepting decisions once they've been made, offering our full support for implementation. And that doesn't mean that, I think we talked about this at the retreat too, that if there's a split decision, if a council decision isn't unanimous, and that it doesn't mean that you can't share what your opinion was, and why you voted the way that you did, but there's a tactful way to do it. And then, and it's always important to say, and council voted, in this particular way. And so I accept that decision, and moving forward, we'll move forward with that decision. So that's what we talked about around that one team for context. And then dedication was that around staying focused on the goals and objectives to provide clear direction and support with adequate resources. So it's just saying we're committed to the goals that we're setting in these objectives to move these forward, knowing that there's a lot of things that come up throughout the year or in the years ahead. But these are our goals. We're dedicated to these and moving these forward, and supporting them.
Counselor Urban.
Thank you. My only offer for modification would be on the one team, instead of offering our full support for implementation, would be, supporting the will of the council to that effect.
Okay. Yeah. We can make that change. All right, I've captured that. Other comments on the values? Do you feel like they capture our discussion? Do you think that there's anything that we are missing?
They look good.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your comments on that. Well, I'll just share quickly around just next steps and to wrap up this section. So around next steps. So we talked about doing a council prioritization survey. And so following this meeting tonight, I'll update goals and the actions and the language that we talked about. And then we have a survey that's ready that can be sent out digitally, that Mindy can share out to each individual counselor. And then you can have a chance to go through each goal area and mark your ranking under each goal area of the specific objectives. It's not something that is official by any means, but it provides staff with a data point in terms of what the priority ranking is from council. So I can aggregate all of your rankings together to have one aggregate ranking, and that's how we can list the supporting objectives in your action plan. And so that'll go out this week. And then the adoption of your goals is set, I believe it's set for May 12th, next week. And then also our team has been working on drafting a council retreat summary report, which essentially just shares the journey that we've been on these past several months in terms of, what does the goal development process look like? It talks about the context mapping, about surveying the current environment of what's going on in the organization, what's going on in the community, and how are these goals being developed. And it also outlines your implementation structure. So those quarterly reports, in accordance with or going along with the financial updates, that you'll have quarterly updates on your goals, and then other updates will be included in like relevant staff reports throughout the year. So it includes some other implementation pieces around that. So we're working on that, and then that will go along with your goals to be updated. But those are the next steps are in terms of this process. Let's see. And so with that, I just want to thank you so much for your engagement throughout this process. And just starting from the individual interviews that we conducted with each of you, to the March retreat, to these two lengthy refinement discussions. Thank you so much for your participation and engagement. And I can, speak on behalf of our firm. It's just been a really big pleasure working with all of you, and we're really excited to see how this council is coming together, and you've developed some really great goals, and looking forward to watching how you implement those, and the value and the good things ahead on the horizon for the Cottage Grove community. So thank you so much for letting us be part of that process, and support you in that work.
Thank you, Ashley. All right. So let's move on to concerns from council. No. Councilor Meredith.
This Friday, we face our first major hurdle in soliciting funds from the Capital Construction Fund. So I'm planning to be in Salem and trying to encourage others as well. So I have a few feelers of people willing to show a presence there when the presentation is made to the Capital Construction Committee. For our part of the request is for completing the entryway to Bohemia Park. So if anyone is willing, we can attend the agenda session remotely if you have access on phone or tablet. I'm using the city tablet to dial in, and we're not exactly sure of the time, but we're not required to be speaking in front of the committee, but just being there as a presence so they can see, look, there's 30 people that are here for this coalition. It would be ideal. So if anybody's available, that would be great. Just hit me up.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Wilson.
Yeah, the chamber conducted a Meet the Candidates forum for the school board elections that are upcoming. So I just encourage the public to, it was a huge showing of the public that was there, which was great to see. And some great conversation was had during that meeting. I did see a real desire of all of the candidates to collaborate with local businesses and with the council for skill building of students as they're coming through the process. So
thank you. Anyone else? All right, report from the city manager.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. I will be extremely brief. We have a big week next week. City council meeting and 2 budget meetings, so encourage you all to be there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Again, happy birthday, Mindy. And this meeting is adjourned.